Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of a really mysterious pathogen. It baffled scientists for years and became a huge threat during the HIV/AIDS pandemic.
So imagine this. A pathogen is causing this terrible chronic illness, but nobody can quite figure out what it is. We're about to uncover the story of an organism that was playing dress-up, pretending to be one thing when it was something else entirely. It's a discovery that literally forced scientists to go back and rewrite the textbooks.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off in the early 1990s. There was this really baffling intestinal illness popping up, and it was hitting patients with AIDS especially hard, causing this chronic, unexplained diarrhea that no one could get a handle on.
So, at first scientists gave it the name Septata intestinalis. When they looked at it under a microscope, they saw this single-celled parasite. They thought, okay, this looks like some kind of primitive protozoan. And they named it after these really unique partitioned walls, or septa, that it would build inside the cells it infected. Made sense at the time.
But here's the thing. What you see under a microscope, that's only part of the story. The real game changer was the arrival of genetic sequencing. Suddenly, this new technology let scientists look past its appearance and read its actual genetic code. And what they found was a complete shock.
The DNA evidence was crystal clear. This thing, it wasn't a protozoan at all. As you can see right here, it belongs to the kingdom fungi. It's actually a super specialized parasitic fungus that has to live inside other cells to survive. So yeah, think of it as a very, very distant and way more sinister cousin of a mushroom. Wild, right? Okay, so now we know we're dealing with a fungus, not a protozoan. That leads to the next big questions. Where in the world is this thing, and who is actually at risk from this little opportunist? Well, Encephalitozoon's intestinalis is pretty much found everywhere, but it's what we call a classic opportunist. It just kind of hangs around, waiting for a person's defenses to be down. That's exactly why it blew up as a huge problem during the AIDS pandemic, going after patients with weakened immune systems, but it's also a threat for people like organ transplant recipients, young kids, and the elderly.
And to put that into perspective, if you look at data from a place like the Netherlands, you can see it's not really causing widespread illness in the general public. You see things like Campylobacter and norovirus dominating the charts. Instead, Encephalitozoon intestinalis is seen as an important pathogen that's either imported or pops up in those specific high-risk groups we just talked about.
So how does this tiny little fungus actually pull off its attack? Well, its life cycle is just a masterclass in hijacking cells. It's pretty incredible, actually.
It all starts with this incredibly tough little spore. So once you ingest it, usually from contaminated food or water, it does something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It fires this harpoon-like tube and literally injects its guts into one of your intestinal cells. Once inside, it builds that weird partitioned house we talked about and just starts multiplying like crazy, turning that poor host cell into a spore factory. Eventually, the cell just bursts, releasing a whole new army of invaders to start the cycle all over again. So what happens when this invasion actually takes place? Well, the outcome is basically a tale of two different hosts. And it all boils down to one single critical factor. How strong is their immune system? And the difference is just, it's night and day. For someone with a healthy immune system, you might get a mild case of diarrhea, or honestly, you might not even notice you're sick at all. But for a patient with advanced AIDS, it's a completely different and devastating story. It can lead to this awful wasting syndrome because their body can't absorb nutrients, and the infection can even spread throughout the body to the kidneys, the lungs, and even the eyes. So how in the world do you find a culprit that's only about 1 to 4 micrometers in size? I mean, that is tiny. Finding it takes some serious detective work. It is literally like looking for a microscopic needle in a haystack. For decades, the only way to diagnose it was to look for these tiny spores in stool samples with a microscope. But it was so hard. The spores are easy to miss, and get this, you needed more than 1 million of them in a single sample to even have a chance of seeing them. But today, wow, modern molecular methods like PCR have totally changed the game. Instead of looking for the spore, these tests search for its unique DNA. They're so sensitive they can get a positive result from as few as 100 spores. A huge difference. Okay, so we've found the culprit, we've got a positive diagnosis. Now what? How do we fight back? Well, the strategy is basically a two-pronged attack that targets both the fungus and helps out the host. And the good news is, pretty much everyone is on the same page here, whether you're looking at CDC recommendations or Dutch guidelines. First, use the drug albendazole to suppress the fungus itself. But, and this is the most critical part, the real key to a cure, especially for HIV patients, is to rebuild their immune system using antiretroviral therapy, or ART. You need both pieces of the puzzle. So how do we avoid getting this in the first place? Well, since the spores are spread through feces and can contaminate food, water, and surfaces, prevention really comes down to the basics. For all of us, that means practicing good food and water hygiene, especially when we're traveling. And in healthcare settings, it means being super strict with infection control to stop it from spreading between vulnerable patients.
Wow, okay, so we have covered a ton of ground. From a huge taxonomic surprise to the nitty-gritty of clinical management, all this information was brought together using advanced research tools. And hey, if you want to geek out and go even deeper, you can check out all the source materials in the linked document.
You know, the story of Encephalitozoon intestinalis is really a powerful reminder of just how fast our understanding of a disease can totally flip on its head. It leaves us with a pretty important question to think about. As modern medicine helps more and more people with compromised immune systems live longer, what other overlooked microbes are just waiting in the wings for their moment to emerge?
If you found this deep dive as fascinating as I did, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and definitely let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next explainer.